Welcome to the last episode of the VK3001 Henschel build, the small tiger tank prototype. This time I will finish the tank. Sorry for this being 3 episodes, but I had quite some good footage. We take care of the running gear, switch around some oil and dust effects, take care of the tracks of course, and finally drive the whole thing home. Let's take care of the running gear first. I really apply a lot of enamel odorless thinner this time. I want the effect paint to really float around and give more a streaking effect than a texture effect. But I selected the same 3 splashes effect colors I used the last time on the lower hull. This time I will use them a little bit thicker, since there's a lot of more mud accumulating in the running gear, I think. And the airbrush is again used as a source of a constant airstream without any paint on it. The paint is placed on the bristles of the brush and splashed onto the surface below. And I use the airbrush of course too to spread the splashes a little bit out when there is a little bit too much thinner. I work my way through all of the 3 selected paint or splash effects, being a little bit more generous with the brighter one and keeping the dark mud effect or splash effect a little bit more down. I don't want this vehicle to look like it was just driving through marshland. The whole thing was found in the backyard of a Henschel facility, so there is not much reason to have thick mud. The cleanup procedure on the Roadwheels must be in a radial way. You can't just pull it down, of course. The wheels are spinning and driving the mud out from the center to the rims. And of course this can be repeated or should be repeated, so we get a nice mixture from a stained surface, the streaks, and still having some of the splashes as a texture. The cleanup procedure is very easy this time. We start with a lot of enamel thinner, so it's easy to shift the enamel paint around. And I don't want to have it completely clean, I want to have this dusty surface left on it. Doing the inside of the road wheels, of course there's a little bit more applied, and while the cleanup is taking place, I leave much more texture on these axles standing. That's the result so far. Together with the lower hull, I think it makes a good impression of what I was after. By the way, the rubber rings around the wheels are painted with mix rubber and tires. But now let's move on into the oil paint, do something new. The palette is the rust set from Abteilung 502, and I would like to use them to rust the muffler without using pigments or anything. As always, when we are working with enamels or oil, we have to lay down a layer of enamel thinner, odorless thinner. It's odorless turpentine, by the way. And this is just done to give the pigment something to float in and float on. Oil paint is known for its good capabilities to do texture, leaving the brush marks. And this is why I do not cover the whole surface of this muffler with the exhaust with the oil paint at once. I would like to layer multiple different color tones that can be associated with rust and blend them all in a way so they leave a small texture or the appearance of a texture. And this is just switching back and forth between different paints, and yeah, it comes together with almost no effort. It's very easy to learn, very easy to do. You can see the whole thing now applied, and of course I have to do the other side. But while I'm at it, I could add some fuel or grease stains on the engine hatches, but I wanted them to be faded since no one was working on this vehicle for a long time. With this small touch-up done, I would like to deal with the dirt and dust deposits on the horizontal surfaces. And a good way to start with it is by framing each panel And this means just to look for the corners and the edges wherever dust and dirt would have a chance to accumulate, and yeah, blending them into these corners, leaving the bright surface of the main surface of the panel by its own, so we can get a more three-dimensional effect. And talking about the center pieces, I use a very light paint here and stipple the whole thing together, adding stains of mud or dirt, dust accumulates, and the whole thing works again just by having selected two paints, creating a contrast, one brighter, one darker than the main panel here. Off we go into the tracks. I have a little puzzle here, wasn't planned. I use the rust tracks and gray shadow from Ammo by Mick. The whole thing is primed with the dark track or rust track, and then the dark gray is only dusted on top of it. This makes it look a little bit sprinkly and helps not having a unified color. Tracks would rust a little bit different. They were primed. Yes, tracks were primed from a factory in dark gray, and so I have this rust color looking through. But that's not all. I want to go a little bit further than I had on the pictures and chip the drive sprocket here a bit. Just painting on some scratches and scuffs on the edges of the drive sprocket makes it more realistic and not as toy-like, I think is the right phrase for it. Here, both sides applied, and I come back with some light dust and earth. These are both enamel products, and I apply them to the recesses of the tracks, making them a little bit dirty. I think this works quite well together with the lightly rusted brownish track, making it look a little bit more realistic and finished without entering the Warhammer 40k universe too fast here. Again, the project had a little bit a restrictive frame for weathering, so I have the main enemy here is not to over weather the tank. And of course I select again a more bright color and do the same on some of the spots only, leaving a little bit a dust or cement or whatever you would imagine to be left on the tracks here and there. And all in all, I think they look quite finished for the time I spent on it. This is not a high profile multi-100-hour build, of course. And moving fast is a good way to gain the overview of how different techniques and effects come together in the end. And speaking of coming together, it's time to deal with the rear section and get the effects together. We did on the lower hull, we did on the muffler or exhaust, and we just missed out the armor plating behind it. So I applied some rust streaking here, and it's important to blend them first from one side and then from the other. Streaks are not symmetrical, of course, and adding just a little bit more of a exhaust fume effect here on the muffler, as well as touching up some of the damaged paint. Yeah, never use acrylic primer again. And then the whole process that was done on the vehicle is repeated. I would like to work more in sections, finishing one section at a time, following Michael Rinaldi, having a guidance for the rest of the tank when the first section is already finished, and having practice on these do or die steps. But that doesn't make for too good of a video, but it makes for a good ending of a video, just repeating all of the shown processes, blending all together, leaving the tank in a finished appearance. The area behind the exhaust I just stippled in a little bit of engine grime. This looks more crude here than it looks in reality, since the overhang covers most of it, or all of it, of course. And here's the finished project now spinning around for you guys. It was fun to build, it went really fast, it went well, it was a nice project. I'm happy as always, but never satisfied. So please let me know what you think about the build and about the video series. If you didn't like it, tell me what I could improve so you might enjoy it in the future. And if you haven't done so, please subscribe to my channel. Check out my other videos. I have a very well sorted start page on the channel. Other than that, happy modeling, guys. See you next time.